Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Last night, there was a young mom and wife who woke up in bed alone. So she sat up and started to look around, trying to figure out where her husband was. As her eyes got used to the dim light, she got up and started to wander around. She went to the stairs, tiptoed down them. As she got to the bottom of the stairs, she noticed a hazy blue light coming from underneath his office door. And it hit her at that time that pervasive and dangerous drug had come back into their home. That he had relapsed, and she sat down and cried. A couple months from now, she's going to be sitting in that same spot weeping because her husband, overcome with this addiction, is going to leave her and her children. Today's speech is not going to be a fun one. It's not going to be very uplifting. And it's going to make some people feel very uncomfortable. But I've come to realize that the topics that people don't want to talk about tend to be the ones that need to be talked about the most. And this is one of those. The topic is pornography. It is a drug. It is an addiction that is sweeping across the nation and across the world now. In case you're not familiar with how pervasive this is, I brought a couple of statistics that I wanted to share with you. One of them is that after analyzing over 400 million web searches, they found that 1 in 8 of all searches made on the internet is for pornography. That increases to 1 in 5 when you look at personal cell phones. The American Academy of Marital Lawyers reports that 56% of all divorces include one party having an obsessive interest in pornographic websites. And according to the Journal of Adolescent Research, nearly 9 out of 10, 87% of young men, and 1 out of 3 young women admit to regularly watching pornographic material. I hope this points out just how much of a problem this is. If it doesn't already, know that every 39 minutes in the United States, another pornographic movie is made. I bring this up because it's dangerous. Some people try to ignore the danger of pornography. They will write it off as something personal that happens in your home, and it really shouldn't be brought out into the light. I'm here to say that they are wrong. Pornography is dangerous physically and in other ways, and I'm going to talk about the physical today. Before I do that, though, I'm going to give you a short science lesson. Our brains have something in it called a reward center. The way that works is it will release a chemical, largely dopamine, that will travel through your system, through your brain, on a trail, and then it will be absorbed into your system through receptors. This is what makes you feel good. So when you do something, when you run a tournament and you win it, that's dopamine kicking in. Same thing when you sit down and eat a delicious-looking steak, or when you help an old lady across the street. This is all the reward center making you feel good for these things. The bad news is that this can be hijacked. We know that, and we've known that for years with research that has gone into illegal drugs, that it hijacks that center of the brain, and it releases too much dopamine, which can be dangerous. The same effect comes when somebody is viewing pornography. It will hijack your brain, release an unnatural amount of dopamine into your body, and it will give urges beyond what is natural. It will make it so that person is constantly thinking about it. Now, the other effect of this, because so much dopamine is bad for your body, is your body will go into a defensive mechanism. It will begin to shut down certain receptors in your brain so not as much dopamine enters it. This, however, can cause a downward spiral, because as less dopamine is able to be absorbed into your brain, you will suddenly want to do more and more to increase how much dopamine is released in the first place, to make those few receptors feel like they're doing more. This is what leads somebody from what they call a soft core porn to a very hard and sometimes to aggressive or abusive behaviors like abuse and rape. A lot of it will start because they just need more dopamine. They need that next big kick. The other danger that comes along with this is your frontal lobe of your brain. It's the portion that is in charge of critical thinking and of decision making. They found in study after study that somebody who consistently views porn has that part of their brain shrink. It actually gets smaller over time. Which means that if somebody is actively viewing pornography and they're getting caught in this web of addiction, that they lose the ability to make good decisions. And they lose the ability to see the consequences of their actions. We can see that these things combined make for a very dangerous situation, which is why so many marriages and families are being broken up today. Now, statistically, there is somebody in this room that has this addiction right now, possibly more. And I hope that now you understand just how dangerous this is. I also want to give you a little shred of hope, though. It is not impossible to overcome. Elder Oaks, who is a leader in our church, gives a 3-step process that can help you break this chain. The first is to recognize that you have it. Just like overcoming any addiction, you need to know that it's there. The second is to seek help. Our church has volunteer bishops that are more than willing to sit down with anybody and help them out, and I'm sure other churches have the same setup in place. And the third is to avoid it at all costs. It's a little bit more difficult with pornography, since any phone, pretty much any phone, can pick it up now. But there are filters that you can put into place, and there are ways that you can make sure technology in your home is in a place where others can view it, to keep yourself safe. I hope that in this short speech, even though it was uncomfortable, that it helped you understand a little bit better the danger associated with something that many consider a private matter. That we need to be more open in talking about it. In my opinion, the reason it has swept through the country and destroyed so many families is because we feel like it's not something that should be talked about openly. We've created this feeling that it is dirty and shouldn't be brought up in public, and that needs to change if we're going to fight against it, if we're going to save individuals and families. I hope that you can help others talk about it, that you talk about it yourself. And if it's something you struggle with, that you'll overcome it yourself. That you will help yourself and others not be one of the statistics. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.